Just add love. Stop one so serious. Just add love. A little more lenience. Just add love. The key ingredient.
Content-wise, like what you're putting out, what you're saying is the most important. Because you might not have like 10,000 people.
Resonates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the podcast, is because I feel like I have really good conversations with people that have something to say and may not have like platforms or whatever. So the only thing I figured out yesterday is because this table is so any like
it'll
you can lean on it or whatever, but just
okay.
Yeah.
Because I gesture quite a lot. So to do your podcast, what are you using? You're
using
recording
Audacity.
already.
Yeah, I'll just record and edit later.
Audacity, and then you just have a mic. Alright, if that's all that's needed for a podcast,
It's pretty simple. Like at least to get started. Yeah. So this one has a bi-directional mic. So if you can see on the back, there's a few settings that only activates the front mic, or it has basically 3 microphones inside. It's a pretty good one-stop shop for the time being.
How much?
It cost me like 180, I think.
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. Cool. All right. So talk to me. What's happening?
So my latest question,
Yeah.
currently, that I've been mulling over, is, do you live in the world as it is, or as the way you want it to be?
Do you live in the world as it is,
As
or
it
the way
is?
you want it to be?
Or the way you want it to be?
That's a good question. Well, what are you basing that question off? Like, what activated or sparked that question?
Okay. I think as a Muslim woman, going through life, you kind of want to live your life feeling as though you can do anything and there are no barriers and that sort of thing. And that's nice way of thinking about it. However, security, safety is something you constantly have to be very vigilant about. And this is something that I think about a lot, is that should I move around in the world the way I think it should be, where I should have the freedoms to do whatever I want to do? Or should I be vigilant and conscious and take all the precautions and measures and not do things that I want to do because out of safety or being vulnerable or something like that? Does that make sense? It doesn't just have to apply to being a Muslim woman. It could be applying to be like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyone, really.
Well, does it have to be like absolutely this or absolutely that?
Well, that's the thing. So that's when I was thinking it over. You know how everyone has the answers to their questions within themselves? They just need to explore it.
Yeah.
So I know what the answer is. I just wanted to know what your take on it was, and what it is what you said, that you can do both, but it's figuring out where and when you do both. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, I was traveling with a friend at the time, and we were in a third world country. Yeah. We were in a country that wasn't safe for women in general. It has one of the highest levels of harassment that gets reported. And when I've traveled a lot, she hasn't. And when I travel, I obviously accustom myself to the society I'm staying in. However, she didn't want to do that. So she wore whatever she wanted to wear while walking down the street in a fairly conservative society. Yeah. And she was getting really angry when she got a lot of attention. And so then I started thinking, okay, well, what is the right way to live? Like, should you be yourself and dress in the way you were raised and who you are and stuff like that? and move in the world in that way. So that, like she was just, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
she was
yeah,
wearing like leggings and a top,
Yeah,
hair out, and she was a very beautiful girl. But the thing is that, do you be yourself completely? You know, born and raised in a Western country, you wear whatever you want here, or do you? And what she's doing, she's living in the world that that she wants
Yeah.
to live in, where you can be yourself, do whatever you want. Well, at that moment, I was like, this could seriously affect your safety. You can't go walking out 11 o'clock at night in Cairo. You can't do that.
Yeah.
As a young woman, it's not safe. It's it's just not safe. And I was sort of coming from, you need to live in the world as it is. Like, that was definitely a situation where you need to live in the world as it is. And there were other people traveling with us at the time, and it became a bit of an issue amongst us, because it's like, if something happens to you, we have to talk to your parents, you know. And so we were sort of advising her, you can't go 11 o'clock at night out walking on the streets.
Well, I think that's the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Like, knowledge is like knowing something, and then wisdom is knowing when to apply that knowledge in different circumstances. So, like, if we take that example specifically, like, yes, we want to live in the world as it is, or the way we see it, or the way we think it should be. But in reality, like, when it comes down to it, if there is a safety issue, like, and you want to live in the world as you see it, then maybe you should be ready for consequences. Do you get what I mean? Like, I get
consequences?
Like, because I understand the desire to live as it is.
Yeah.
I understand the desire to live in the world as you see it, because maybe in a way you're affecting some sort of change by doing that.
Yeah.
Or, I guess, showing the people around you that,
well, you get to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You're not governed by fear.
But that's not the reality, right?
Well,
the reality is what the reality is.
Yeah.
Going for a walk at 11 o'clock in some places is dangerous.
Yeah.
So, and you know it's dangerous, and what happens when you engage in a dangerous situation? There are consequences, or possible consequences.
And I think in those circumstances, it's like, where does the responsibility lie if something does happen? Does it lie on her, or does it lie on the perpetrator if something were to happen? And I think living in the world as you want it to be, the responsibility of bad actions is on the perpetrator and not the person themselves. But the world as it is, you know, you kind of you have to you will get blamed, or you will get named, like, oh, why were you doing this? And, do you know what I mean?
I get what you mean. You don't want to, like, get into victim blaming, but at the same time, like, if I jump on a motorbike, right, I ride. So if I get on a motorbike, I have to know that the chances of something terrible happening are much greater than if I drove a car.
Well, it's a calculated risk, just like what you
Exactly.
driving a motorbike and her going out at night.
Exactly. I think it is a calculated risk, because you know, like, this is the reality.
Yeah.
I would love to go, hey, I'm gonna ride on a motorbike and nothing terrible is ever gonna happen.
Yeah.
But when we look at it in that way, it's like, no, but that's not the reality. And I guess the world, the way in that the world, like, living in the world the way that we want it to be is also very subjective. What if there's two very different opposite people that are wanting the world to be two very different things?
Of course,
so,
yeah. I mean, the way you would want the world to be, and me could be different in certain...
Could be very different. But the reality is the world is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So despite what you and me think that the world should be, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then if that is how this person acts in a way that they think will affect change, it doesn't really affect the reality in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't affect the actual...
in that particular
like,
situation,
like going back to the motorbike, like, if I'm riding and I'm like, oh, the world is like, nothing bad is going to happen. That's not the reality, despite what I think it is, you know.
Okay, so that was more of that was one situation. But if you flip it now to, like, the situation of Rosa Parks on the bus, that wasn't a movement, or I don't think when she did it, she wasn't trying to change the world or
Yeah.
anything. She was just trying to, demand the rights for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so she lived in the world the way she wanted it to be,
Yeah.
not as it was.
Yeah.
And it was something that was that affected her safety.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between my friend walking 11 o'clock at night, wanting the world to be what she wants to be, that women should have the equal opportunity to do that just like men do,
Yeah.
and then Rosa Parks being on the bus?
But the Rosa Parks incident, like what came of it afterwards?
At the time,
Yeah.
at the time there was no intention.
Yeah.
Like with my friend walking late at night, it might have. Well, I don't think it would have sparked all these things. But at the time, at the time, there was like when she did that, she had no intention of being like, oh my god, I'm totally gonna go viral if I do this.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think again that's the reality of the world. Some things will go, like some things will send a message and some things won't. Like the same thing if Rosa Parks had gotten on 3 buses before that one, maybe it wouldn't have made such a difference. Like the world is in a way like the reaction to that happened afterwards, and that's a part of the reality of the world.
Yeah.
Not of the reality of the world we want to live in. Like you said, she didn't intend to make like some revolutionary change but she did something, and then the reaction of the world was a part of its reality. Like this is what happens sometimes. Why does things go viral, I'm speaking in modern terms. Like some people do, like I've worked in the community for a long time, and I know a lot of people that do spectacular, amazing things and get 0 credit for it. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
And there are some people that, say some stupid shit on social media, and then all of a sudden, bang, like they're, cash me outside, how about that? Like something like so silly, can become, like, can blow up really. And that's not, I don't think it's something we have control of. If you look at the world as like this intricate, like a super intricate spiderweb of like hundreds of thousands of things happening at the same time, There's a word, I don't remember what it is now, but the idea is that like you might be walking past a coffee shop, right? And all of the people in the coffee shop are just backgrounds to your life. But in reality, each of those people have a life as complex and as complicated as yours, right? And your background to theirs, exactly. So it's a very interesting like concept, but I think it's important for everyone to do the best that they can with what they have,
Best that they can. Okay. So with that, how, knowing that the world is quite a dark, brutal place to live in, it is, how do you manage your own vulnerability and trusting others and taking risks and investing time, whatever it is? How would you manage that? So say for example, the world that you want it to be, there was a scientific study that found that positive people only see positive in everyone, or majority see the positive in everyone. And that really frightened me, because it was like they don't see people as they are. They have a bias of seeing them positively. And I definitely, like, I'm a very positive person, and I definitely like have done that, where I'll see someone and only see their positive and downplay their negative without really acknowledging the person as a whole. And it took me a long time to realize this is a toxic friendship, because this person, although they have a lot of good qualities, their negative ones are very, very severe. And that really worried me. So then I was like, if I live in the world as I want it to be, where you just see, I speak the truth, and so I just assume that everyone else speaks the truth. Call it naive, but I can't help it. I'm not just the type to be suspicious enough to think, okay, are they lying to me? I have that bias.
Yeah.
And I get it from my dad. I blame him. but the thing is that how do you interact with other people? And I think knowing that study happened and being conscious of that has now made me realize that it's okay to be a positive person and wanting to trust people and wanting to believe that everything they say is right and stuff like that. But there's always going to be at least some shred of doubt. There should nothing should be absolute. Nothing
Yeah, I
should
agree
be
with that,
absolute. Yeah.
I think too much of anything or absolute anything
Is bad,
is not good, you know. And we've always been taught to be a middle people, and that's one of the reasons why. Because pure positivity is not good, and pure negativity is not good. There always has to be some sort of balance, right?
Yeah.
I used to have a friend who would absolutely, this is more than 10 years ago, would absolutely lie about everything. Like, even the most, like, minute detail, unnecessary, don't need to be lying about
Compulsive,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, man, where are ya? Oh, yeah, I'm out. I'm at TAFE. Okay? And then I'm like, oh, all right, no worries. I was going to come past and see you, but, you know, you're obviously not home or whatever. And then literally drive past his house, like, 2 minutes later, and he's at home. Like, out the front of his house. Like, unnecessary. And it, like, got to me, and I'm like, okay. Like, why? I don't understand that. And I asked a really good friend of mine at the time, and I'm like, hey, like, this situation happened, and I'm just trying to, like, I'm tripping out. Like, why does this person lie when they don't need to? And then he said, it's because you're not like that. You'll probably never understand it. Like, it's a behavior that you may never understand. Unless you, like, get into the psychological aspect. But even understanding something from the outside, like, as world-class psychologist, for example, and I understand what makes the behavior happen, but you will never truly understand it because you don't do that thing, or you're not like that.
Yeah.
Because you can try and understand it, but you won't actually ever completely comprehend
until
it.
you experience it yourself, and
Yeah,
you won't be able
and
to
because you're not like that, because you're not a liar, quote unquote liar, you know,
There was
it would be
sorry,
difficult.
go.
Yeah.
There was a study that, well, I don't know if it's a study, but it's more of a theory that, like, when someone people project the anxieties they have. So if someone is judgmental towards someone else, right, it's because they're afraid of being judged, right? And so this is a good measure. If someone is suspicious of someone else doing something, most likely that they've done it. You know, like, for example, if someone's cheated on someone else, they are more likely to be anxious that their partner will cheat.
Okay.
And so that is a really good way of me checking myself. So if I feel anything negative towards someone else, I check myself and I'd be like, okay, what are my anxieties? Do I have any hang-ups or stuff like that? And I think that I'm just trying to think of a situation exactly that I've been in, and
I can see it. I can
you
see
know,
how
I'm
that
just
is.
trying to.
Because it's almost like the life that you live and the decisions that you make create the lens in which you see the world, right?
That's a really nice way to put it. Yeah.
So definitely going back to what we're talking about, how the world is, how we want the world to be. Like, the reality is the way things happen the way they happen. But each of us see the world differently, right? Because we are, I guess, an amalgamation of our experiences and decisions and upbringing and nature and nurture and all of this stuff. Like, that shapes, and that's why 7 billion people around the world have 7 billion different lenses of how we look at the world. And I think that contributes to us seeing or being paranoid about certain things.
Yeah.
You know, that might happen to us because that's how we are.
Yeah.
You know?
Based on our experiences.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's true. That's why it's so important to heal from whatever trauma you've gone through.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
If you don't heal, then you'll project it to the next person. And I think a lot of people don't even recognize that they're in trauma or know how to fix it.
Definitely. I think that's a really good point. Like, through the work that I've done in the community, it's really interesting to see how people may not even understand that they have trauma. And the thing about trauma is it kind of not only helps dictate what decisions you're making, but also really affects that lens that we were talking about, right? Like if we imagine everyone's wearing a pair of glasses, like trauma contributes to that, and you may not even know that you have this or have experienced this, and you start making decisions, and you might not know what these decisions are or why you made them. But if you really boil down to it, it's like, oh, this thing happened to me when I was in primary school or in high school.
And that's why I don't.
And that's why, like, you know, a really interesting situation happened recently, in which like a friend of mine was handling a situation that wasn't handling it regularly as anyone else would handle it. You know, and after asking a few questions and kind of like, you know, why this, and kind of getting to the bottom of it, you know, some trauma happened to them early on in their life that affected how they reacted to this certain situation. And I was like, oh, like I had a light bulb, and I was like, that's why, that's trauma, right? This thing happened, and they're not even remembering that thing happened, or not even connecting it to the decisions that they're making. Like trauma is an interesting thing, and the brain, I guess, how it operates is an interesting thing, because it's always trying to protect itself, right? And to protect the person, and that's why you have people that have things happen to them in their life that they suppress, and that's where like memory suppression comes from. It's like the brain is trying to protect itself from bad things, I guess, happening to it. It's like almost like a reactionary thing, and you know, the effects of trauma is a part of that. Like when if you write computer code and there's a problem early on in the code, it eventually means somewhere down the line something isn't going to work. So when someone reacts to a situation that, you know, in a different way, even that's outside of their character, it's because somewhere in that code, somewhere in the growth of the brain, something has happened that has made a glitch later on, like happen down the track. But I agree, definitely, like I always have a saying, there are two types of people that need to see a counselor, and people that don't think that they need to see a counselor. Like I think everyone should have someone that they talk to, and, and work through stuff. And recently I had a conversation with someone, and they said there's two types of like counseling that you can go and seek. There's the breakdown counseling, like when something happens, they go and they speak to someone and they're like, this is the problem, and they kind of work through that. But there's also like maintenance, so anticipating a problem and working at that problem before it happens to make sure that it doesn't end up becoming a problem, you know?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people think the word trauma is like when you've been, is just when you've been abused. But really trauma is just describing anything that's, I mean, for me, the way I define trauma is anything where it has severely affected you and you're not able to self-soothe from it.
Yeah.
You're not able to come back from it. It's something that's, it's affecting you for a long time. And I am amazed at how many people I talk to, and they're telling me about the situation they're in, and it could be their previous marriage or community politics or whatever, and it's severely affecting them. And I said to them, you need to see a psychologist, like, you know, have someone to talk to. And their response is just like, oh, no, I'm okay, really.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about this multiple times
Doesn't seem like you're
for
okay.
like a long period of time. I feel like I'm the precursor to a psychologist.
Yeah.
If you're talking like to me like this, you definitely need to see a psychologist. But these are smart people, educated people, leaders in the community, wise, intelligent people. But they laugh when I suggest it. And I think that's really sad. That really bothers me that people laugh, because they associate psychologists with being crazy, mentally unstable, when really it's just someone to talk to that can actually give you coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Because you talk to your friends who can't give you these coping mechanisms, who might advise you to do the wrong thing. And you know what I mean?
It's like speaking to a doctor and then going, hey, like, man, my car is really, like, it's broken down. It's making these weird noises.
What should I do?
Yeah, but if you really went to a mechanic,
Yeah.
they would be
Yeah.
able to help you a lot more, and maybe
Yeah.
even able to diagnose things just by hearing, like, oh, what does the noise sound like?
Exactly.
That's a really interesting thing, and that's honestly one of the reasons why I wanted to start the podcast, was because I have really interesting conversations with some really intelligent people in their fields, and I just think sometimes, like, if only the world could hear, like, if only people could, like, learn, even passively, even just by listening to something like that. But definitely a massive issue I feel like we have in our community, or in all communities, is the concept of mental health and what that means, what it means to go see a counselor or a psych, you know, I guess the negative, the taboo of...
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Eamon, let's not also forget that it's freaking expensive. It's $150 minimum to see someone for an hour, or
Yeah.
$100. You can get the 10 free sessions
Yeah.
through your doctor, but it's expensive. And in a community and with people who do not know how to self-care, they would rather spend, say, a couple $1,000s on a holiday than a couple $1,000s on talking to a
But
psychologist.
that's therapy as well.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
it's
true.
that's maybe their way of coping, or...
I think it's short. It's taking a break, but it's not dealing with
Yeah.
the situation. So what I would like to encourage people is that spend intentional thousands of dollars on therapy. You need to think of it like that. You need to think, okay, $150, that's a lot of money, but it's for your own mental health. It's an investment on yourself.
Yeah.
Self-care is just starting to come into the community.
Yeah.
And when I talk to a lot of people, their self-care will be something like a facial or a massage,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But self-care really can be intellectual. It can be listening to a podcast. It can be going to see a psychologist. So that's self-care where you're like learning.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
It is expensive.
The investment. It is expensive, but you know, there's that there's like a joke. It's like, oh, hey, it was a meme that I saw, or something like that. It was like, hey, I need you to create like this logo for me. He's like, you know, here you go. Like, I created this logo, you know, that's $200 or something like that. And then it's like, oh, but it only took you 10 minutes to do it. It's like, yeah, but I had to go to school for 6 years and, you know, pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to do this in a short period of time.
Exactly.
So some of the there's not a lot of them, but some of the greatest, like, therapists that I've come into contact with or worked with or referred clients to, I've seen them work actual magic.
Yeah.
You know, and you realize how much effort goes into that thing and how many years they've spent, and then like you like think about it, like $150 to solve like a problem, or you know, like they say that a healthy person wants 100 things, but a sick person only wants one thing, right? If you look at the value that they're giving you and the cost that they're charging, I don't think it's that expensive in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, it depends on a lot of things in terms of how much you're making, whether you have children,
Yeah.
how you see about caring for yourself, and yeah, I think it's not about the money. It's more about how you see it.
Yeah.
Where if you look at, okay, I've got to pay my children's private school fees and thousands of dollars and all that sort of stuff, but if you invest in your own mind, then you know it's better for your child. If you're happy, if your child sees you happy,
That's
then
right.
you know that's better. So. Yeah. You know what? Interesting personal story I'll tell you.
Love personal stories.
I went through... So I studied psychology. It was my science major. And I weaved that into my master's and things like that. And I use psychology every day. And I have counselled a lot of friends over the years, whether it be regarding suicide, self-harm, severe issues, child abuse, sexual abuse, all that sort of stuff. And so I was constantly recommending people to see psychologists and stuff like that. And I've always thought, oh, maybe I should try it because I've been telling so many people to go and see a psychologist. Maybe I should try it. So for the past few years, I was like, yeah, I'll go see one day. But then but then I'm like, but for me, it was like, oh, 150. That's a lot. That's too much. I don't like that. What is someone going to do in 1 hour?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Because I was like, I'm not going through any trauma. Like, I'm pretty happy. Everything's fine. And it was that not seeing it was observing. It was.
You want to test them out?
Sorry, no, I'm just trying to start my sentence so that you can edit it out. It was seeing seeing a psychologist was more for dealing with trauma rather than maintenance. That was the bias that I had.
Yeah.
Because I only saw it that way.
Yeah.
And so...
Which most people see it.
People see it. And so then... Yeah, and the reason I wanted to see a psychologist was to sort of compare notes, because I analysed myself.
Yeah.
And analysed my childhood and my inner child and why am I the way I am and why do I want things that I want, blah, 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 blah. And I just always thought about, I should see one. And then it was like, okay, should I see someone who's Muslim or not? And then I was like, and then I thought, so then I made an appointment with a Muslim psychologist that I didn't know. And it was interesting. Another interesting fact is whether it should be a male or a female.
Yeah. And
I think the female Muslims, I don't know. I think I had a bias against it because my sister once told me that she was working with a school counsellor, and that school counsellor would tell her all these things and tell other teachers all the things that the children told her. Okay. And so I was just like, and then and then another friend of mine saw a counsellor who divulged information to me at one point, and I was like, "Ooh, this is not right."
Yeah.
So for me, I thought Muslim female counsellor. I don't know. I had a bias against it.
Because of the experiences.
Of people knowing people in the community and people knowing you, and there's overlap and stuff like that. So I made an appointment with a male psychologist, and then literally that same day, I was supposed to see him.
Yeah.
I saw him at a community event, and I met him, and through mutual friends.
Yeah,
and so immediately, like, we were in the same circles.
Okay, so
and I was like, and then I cancelled my appointment because I didn't want to see someone who was in the same circles and stuff like that. And then that was the end of it, and that was fine.
But that just means they're not professional.
What do you mean? Oh no, as in they were in the community.
Yeah, but look, a good therapist is able to separate.
Oh, of course, and I'm sure he does that. I'm sure he does that.
But not everyone does that.
Not everyone
and
does
that's
that.
why in the Muslim community we have so many people that I know personally would say like, "Oh, you should go see a counselor or whatever," and they're like, "No, not a Muslim one."
Yeah.
Because that person might know my
dad,
or I might have to like work with them in the future or whatever the case is. And that's shit because
I went to a Muslim doctor and I was talking to the doctor and he met my dad at the mosque and he didn't divulge anything. There was nothing really that bad. But he just said to my dad that I saw your daughter.
But
like,
even that is like...
Even that is like wrong.
That's not
do you know what I
okay.
mean? I mean, I was a bit surprised by that because what if it was something very severe? Do you know what I mean?
And that maybe that contributes severely to the fact that people don't want to, or they want to go see someone out of the area.
And I think that's the reason. I'm sure that psychologist I'm referring to is extremely good in his field and is very impartial.
The chance of that thing happening.
Yeah, like he's friends with my friends, and I'm just like, nah, that's not gonna happen. I don't, and I thought, nah.
Why do people talk to friends and open up to friends, and they won't go see a professional?
Because they trust their friends, and their friends are free.
Okay. So the cost is a big thing.
Cost is a huge thing.
Okay.
I mean, 10 sessions is $1,500.
Yeah. But what if they like, let's say cost wasn't an issue, just the concept of like, I'll go out and speak with my friends or,
If cost was an issue, I think more people would take it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, Muslim Women's Association are offering free counselling. So that's good.
Yeah.
But they're again,
Or if people have a social work degree or a psych degree, they can access like government assistance to get those 10 free sessions. And I think as well now, if you go back, you can get another 4 in a year. So I think it's 14 all up in a year.
Yeah, and you can get referral for more, something like that. I don't know. So anyway, and then, so after that, then I didn't see a psychologist after that. I was like, tra-la-la-la-la. And then something, I would say it wasn't trauma as most people see it, but it was something that I couldn't self-soothe from, and it hurt me. And I was like, okay, now I really need to see a psychologist to unpack this and figure out, you know, what happened and stuff like that. And so I went to the doctor and I got the, and even going to that point, because I remember what I went through was not severe trauma, but they asked me to fill in a survey thing where you tick boxes. Yeah. And a lot of them was, how often do you feel hopeless and suicide and this. And I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my God, I don't need to see a psychologist. My score was like 3 or something, or 6 or something. And so out of 30. And so she was like, even the doctor was like, oh, your score's really low. Do you need to see, like, it was, it was kind of like, are you sure you're not feeling depressed? You're not feeling sad? And I'm like, well, yeah, I feel sad occasionally, but I'm not depressed.
Are you sure you're not crying yourself to sleep every night?
Exactly, yeah. And I thought, maybe I don't, and I think.
But was this the actual therapist, or was this
this was a doctor, the one who does the referral. Yeah.
Okay.
So then I was like,
but see, they're doctors. They're not necessarily professionals.
Exactly. And but they're the precursor to get the referral, the discount. So having
to go through a doctor to see a therapist can sometimes dissuade you. Yeah,
dissuade you, because doing that survey, you're like, well, I don't want to, I'm not self-harming. I'm not going to kill myself. So
like, even the questions are like, hang on a second.
And she was trying to get me to admit that I was more traumatized than I was. Yeah. And I might have been, but I didn't want to admit that to her.
That's so dangerous, though.
I didn't want to, I wasn't comfortable to say, like, because I think she wanted to know what it was. And I'm like, no, like, I didn't want to tell her. And so that was interesting. And so as that was happening, I went through the employee assistance program, EAP. A lot of workplaces have it where they give you a couple sessions. And I went to a place and it was $200 psychologist. I was near my work. And I basically talked the whole time. It was a great story. You know, it was a superb story. And I really just needed to get it off my chest. And I told to a few friends, but I wanted to tell a psychologist. But the poor thing, like, she didn't even have enough time to really, and with and one session isn't enough.
It's definitely not enough.
And I'm not going to go back for $200. My work would have paid for it, like maybe a second one, but I was like, this is too much money. And then this is the situation I'm in now. And I, one recommendation there was, now I have the referral from the doctor, even though I had to go through that weird thing where I wasn't as bad as, I felt like I didn't deserve it. You know? Because I just wanted to see, before I invest money, because you also have to find the right psychologist.
That's also right.
Yeah, you don't want to spend $150 here, $150 here.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean?
That's important, because a lot of people, they'll say, oh, like, I tried it and I didn't really like what they said to me. Yeah. And then, like, my response to that is, well, finding a good therapist is like finding a good friend. Yeah. Just because they're nice people, that doesn't mean you're going to mesh or going to connect. So I think everyone has different styles and different ways of doing things and different focuses. And so it's important, like, that people know that, you know, not every counselor is for everybody. Exactly. You know, that's important to know as well. And that's surprisingly something that I felt like I had to explain several times, that it's not necessarily like a one-stop shop, like, or one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Oh, you have a degree, therefore you can counsel everyone. No, it's all personality and how they, and maybe even how they they're receptive. The trust, right? Yeah, the trust. Like you said, the reason why people talk to friends they trust them. Yeah. So if this person isn't able, or this therapist isn't able to build a certain trust, then, you know, maybe it's just not.
Well, with the one I went to, she was so entertained by the story that she was like caught up in wanting to know the story. So, like, don't get me wrong,
Tell
like
me
my
more.
stories are freaking amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, you know, I don't, like, fine. But she wasn't trying to delve into me and my mind and my
Yeah.
situation and how I was feeling, but really like, what happened next? How did you find that out?
That'll be
And I was
150
like,
bucks.
wait, yeah, I was like, 200, even 200.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no. Anyway, so I found a good psychologist upon recommendation. I have all the paperwork. Why have I not been going? And I realized, I'm like, why have I not seen this as a priority? Are there any anxieties? Like, I'm trying to understand why I haven't done it yet. Like, I have to plan it and stuff like that. So that's where I'm at right now, which is interesting. That I haven't. Sorry.
Should go see a counselor about that.
Yeah. Why do I have anxiety to see a psychologist? Yeah, I don't know why, because I definitely want to. I want to understand myself more and do that maintenance thing, because now I think I'm over the, like, whatever the hurt that I've been through. I'm over that, but it's definitely understanding myself and the maintenance. So yeah, I'm gonna do it. I just need to bite the bullet and do it.
That's interesting how it works when there's a sentiment, like a community sentiment almost, and how people may know that this sentiment is definitely wrong, but it still affects us anyway.
Yeah.
It's interesting in that way, like how that works.
Can you expand on that?
So if we're using this example specifically, we know the community sentiment.
Yeah.
As a whole, like, there's a taboo about talking about mental health and going to see a counselor and all of this stuff. And then, obviously, from our conversation, we know that's problematic. Let's say that. It's problematic. But then, in a way, it kind of still might affect our decision.
Absolutely.
Even though we know that's not the case,
know. Yeah.
it's like, I know this is not how it should be, but it's still affecting us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, remember, knowledge and wisdom?
Right.
You know, you can have the knowledge, like, I know this is good for, I know I have to see the doctor, I know I've got to get myself checked, I know I've got to do this, and then actually doing it, it's like, knowing when to do it, and understanding that you have certain anxieties about it, and things like that, like, definitely plays a role. And so that's why it's so important. That's why I would say I cling, and I try to express this. I hold both hands and I'm grabbing onto my mental health as if it could just, like, I could just, like, slip away. Because the truth is, anyone can get depressed, anyone can get suicidal, anyone can self-harm. And if you think you're immune to it, you're not. Not just wait, but, like, anything could happen in your life. If you don't know how to self-soothe, you can go down a spiraling, you just fall down the hill. And so for me, if I'm thinking about something for a long time, I'll check myself and be like, well, why am I still thinking about this? All right, let me talk to someone. Let me talk to a friend about it.
So it's just being aware of, like, if something is constant in your life, then like, analyzing that. That's something I don't think a lot of people are able to do.
Consciously aware of your mental health.
But everything in our, like, 2019 world is taking us away from that. And I think that's why now there's a big push towards quote-unquote meditation, right? Is because it's like switching off from everything and just being with yourself and saying, like, okay, what's a recurring theme that's happening here? You know? And then allowing your mind to, you know, it's kind of like, if you're always busy.
Do we have a tissue? Toilet paper?
Yeah, sorry. I need to get a tissue box in here. It's a good idea.
Oh my god, there's a whole bathroom.
Yeah. It's a granny flat.
But there's no bedroom.
Well, it's like a studio. Like, if a studio... Like, I saw, I think, pictures before I moved in, and I think there was, like, 2 beds in here, and, like, that's the kitchenette.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty simple. But I was like, I'm just going to turn it into this.
Is that a sofa bed?
Yes.
Oh, you're fine.
It is. So if I had friends over or whatever and they wanted to crash out, I'm like, yep, my house is over there. You can,
Airbnb is good as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll do Airbnb. Alright. Sorry, what were you saying?
That's all right. So I was saying, the idea or the concept of meditation is, I guess, allowing yourself to just experience you as you are without outside distractions, right? And the way I look at it is, like, if you're always busy, just say like your 9 to 5, whatever it is you do for work is always busy, how difficult is it to get through your emails, right? And meditation is almost like sitting down and going, I'm not going to take any phone calls, I'm not going to have any meetings, I'm just going to clear out this inbox. And yeah, during that time you may have like some emails coming through, but you're dedicating time to clearing that inbox. And then how awesome is it when you hit that magical inbox 0? Yeah. It's like, so that's why you can't do one meditation session and expect it to work, or one therapy session and expect it to work, right? You need to dedicate time to this thing in which you're constantly clearing this inbox. You're allowing things that are going to come up. You're dealing with them as they come up. And then eventually you'll get to this place where you're on 0, in which everything is clear and everything is like, okay, I'm up to date with myself. Yeah. And I think
it's like a muscle.
Yeah.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
And there's this concept of when you're in your thoughts, you're in the middle of an ocean and there's waves everywhere crashing over you, and that's you in your thoughts, right? But when you're observing your thoughts, you're in a boat and you're looking at the waves and you're still in the water, like you're still feeling the effects of the water, but you're a bit slightly above and you can observe the waves and stuff like that. It's not overwhelming. And I think that observing your thoughts, observing the way you think, like, why am I so negative about this thing? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And constantly asking yourself why questions. Yeah. And then being able to understand yourself a lot more is important.
I think people find that I don't think it's right. I think people find that tiring because some people, I think, are extremely troubled or so troubled that it's almost like, if I can't even be bothered to open this can of worms because it's just gonna...
Yeah, well, they don't have the skills to find the boat and the paddle. They're just in the water. They're drowning.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
That's the overwhelming majority, which is upsetting and scary, I guess, and that's why we need more people who become professionals. Yeah. Like a common theme is like, we go to, I have this problem or I have like an issue. Who do we go see? We go see the local imam. And it's like, well, that's great, but, the imam has his specialty. And that's in, fiqh or hadith or, Islamic history.
That's why everyone should know psychology.
They're not equipped with the tools to deal with that. And that also overburdens the... like one thing I just found out recently is that they are now allowing pharmacists to do doctor certificates. I was like,
medical certificates.
Medical certificates. Yeah, medical certificates. Yeah. That's right, yeah. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that's easing the load of GPs, easing the load of hospitals and all of this stuff, because if I just need a doctor's certificate or a medical certificate, I can go get that somewhere else and not clog up the system. And I feel like that's what's happening in our communities. We're so overloading these leaders with all of this stuff that they may not be equipped or they don't have the toolbox. But they have the best of intention most of the time. And it's very much about like, okay, this is a problem in our community, I need to deal with it. But you wouldn't go to your mechanic for a headache, right? You go to the person that has the toolbox that you need, that has the skills that has the skills to help you with whatever problem it is that you have. Yeah.
All right, I want to ask you something. It's a slightly different arena. Say, for example, you are in business with someone, and that business partner really messed you over. Yeah. And that happens a lot with a lot of friends of mine, and that's why they go into business themselves, and it's tough. and they lose friends as well. So coming back to whether you want to live in the world as it is or as it should be, like, how do you trust someone else with your business and your money and your income? How do you trust someone else to come in and work with them again? And because, say, for example...
Is this like another person?
Another person.
Like a different person? From
Another
the person
completely
that
different
stuffed them
person.
over.
So
Yeah.
say that, for example, someone took a lot of money and ran off,
Yeah.
you know, with your business and stuff like that. And so you're like, whoa, people can be bad.
People are capable.
People
of
can
that.
be so nasty. I trusted this person,
Yeah.
and they did this, you know. And so then there are two ways in which you can sort of act from that. One is the world is really bad. It's my fault. I didn't. I shouldn't have trusted him completely. I should have been smarter. And now I'm not going to trust anyone else to go into business with. I'm doing it myself. And that's firm. And then the other part is that person. That person, what they did was wrong. The responsibility is on them, and maybe they really needed the money, and they will, karma or God or whatever you believe in will be dealt with them. And I'm going to find someone else and learn from that situation and trust someone else. Now, I feel like most people choose the first option. I'm not trusting anyone again until they've maybe through time they've healed through that trauma. So which response do you think is smart? Because most people who go through trauma go through it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone I know. She was confiding in me, and I can't believe her life. Like, it's from one thing to another.
Yep.
And I think, and I wonder that she was doing the second option of, okay, that person was bad.
Yep.
I'm still gonna trust people. I'm still gonna be positive, and then basically, like, she was hurt again and again and again. And I just thought, maybe the world as it is, 99% of people are evil and bad, and will, if they can, abuse or take money or take ego and stuff. And there is 1%. They're not everyone. There is some chance of meeting someone who is good and trusting someone who is good. But the fact of the matter is, it's rare. And so you live in the world as it is, not as you want it to be.
Yeah.
And you be the first response, where you be very cautious, you be very strict, you be high standards and all that sort of stuff before you trust someone again. What are your thoughts, Aiden?
That's a lot to unpack. I think one question that comes out of that question is, if someone experiences trauma, do they then become susceptible to further trauma? Or an alternate question is, if someone experiences trauma, like, what happens when someone has qualities that not attract trauma, that's not what I'm trying to say,
I know what you mean.
but put themselves, like, those qualities in their personality or their character that put them in situations where trauma is more likely than others. That's definitely a question we're not going to address, because that's another conversation. But I think the first thing I'll say is, I think it's unfair to judge person B on how person A treated them, if they're unrelated. Or judge person F on how person A and B treated you, right? Because I definitely have to believe in the work that I do and in the direction I'm heading, like with my life and my career, that people are not 99% evil. I have to believe that.
Why?
Because why would you do what you do then? If the world is doomed, then we're all gonna...
Well, because of the 1%.
The 1% are the good people.
Yeah. So that's what gives you some hope that, there is a slim chance, but there are chances of meeting good people.
Even if the world was 99% bad, I still believe they can be like the 1%. I have to believe that. And I think a lot of people in counseling, mental health, case management. They work with the community as servants for the community. They have to believe that. Otherwise, it's almost like, oh, it's a lost cause or whatever. So I don't believe that 99% of our society or whatever is bad. I just think it's a whole bunch of circumstances and situations, and every case has to be looked at individually.
Can I just just clarify? Yeah, okay, maybe the 99 to 1% is a bit like...
Yeah.
It's a bit extreme, like using percentages.
But I just use it, I understand
But
the
what I
concept.
meant is, majority of people that you're going to meet are not going to be good.
Yeah.
There's a minority
I still disagree with that.
Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I have a very...
We finally found something we disagree on.
Yeah.
I mean, but the word bad is also laced with it. But what I mean is people who aren't self-actualized, don't know how to deal with things, so they deal with it and it manifests in a negative way.
I just think everyone's in pain.
I'm not in pain. Not really. I think that,
pain
majority
is
of people
though.
are in pain. Majority of people are in an overwhelming sense of pain. Yeah. I would agree with that. And that manifests into negative behavior, bad behavior.
So if we help deal with the pain,
well,
if someone is yelling and screaming because they're in pain, the best way to help them with their yelling and screaming is...
What if they're not yelling and screaming? What if they're abusing?
But what's the cause of it? Like, let's stop looking at the... Okay, I get where you're going, but still, if it's because of the pain...
How do you deal with those people? I mean, if you're a psychologist, yes, of course you're going to be like, okay, we're going to try and fix you. I mean, not fix you, but we're going to try and work on those issues. And you have a sense of rahmah, a sense of mercy, because, maybe that happened in your life or that happened in your life to make you like the way you are. But then if you're on the flip side and you're a good person seeing that...
or being affected by it.
You're not going to want to... And I think a lot of, in my experience, a lot of women do this, where they will try and... So they'll have someone do something really nasty to them and then rationalize it as, oh, his parents got divorced and he didn't know how to be a good man and that's why he did what he did. And I'm just like, okay. Like, and I mean, on one hand, yes, sure, that's a good way to see it. But the other hand, like, and yeah, no absolutes, no one's a bad or good person completely. But what that person did was bad. That action they did was bad.
Agree,
and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And it's their fault. And that's it.
And people should be responsible for their actions.
People should be responsible for their actions and not blame. Yeah. It's a really difficult thing.
It is.
Where do you shift the responsibility and how far do you shift it? Like, do you blame someone, because he's a man or because of his upbringing, because of the society that he's grown up in, the sexualized society that he's grown up in? It's like, at what point do you give the responsibility to the person themselves?
But again, I believe both. I believe that, yes, we can look at the circumstances in which they grew up or the circumstances that they experienced as a cause of that behavior. But I still believe that person is responsible for their behavior. 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. You can never blame someone who was on the receiving end of anything negative for what they've experienced. The same way that you can't look at that person and go, oh, it's all right that they did that bad thing because of their background.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm looking at it in a therapeutic way of helping solve that issue or helping people become more emotionally intelligent. Like, there can be two different people and experiencing exactly the same thing and dealing with it in very different ways. One person can say, I am how I am because of what I experienced in my life, which is in a way true.
True, yeah.
But the other person will say, I will not let this thing that happened to me in my life define me. Yeah. It's a part of who I am, and accepting that is a part of the healing. But then I am not going to, do negative things because of this thing. I'm not going to let it control my behavior. And that takes a really strong person. And unfortunately, a lot of people, or not a lot of people, there are people that don't have that strength or don't even have that understanding of that concept.
No, yeah.
They're just like, oh, like, I am what I am.
Yeah,
I am what I am. Like, only God can judge me, kind of thing.
I actually know someone who had that tattooed on his neck, like not even on
God,
the
can
neck,
judge me, bro.
on the inside of the neck.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's just a way of like, I guess, dispelling the responsibility that's on them. Like only God can judge me. Yeah, and then
But that's full on.
you're still a shitty person.
You should be afraid of that. That's a scary thing to just do.
Only God can judge me. I'm gonna be a shitty person. Yeah.
God.
Tell me about your friendship theory.
How much time do you have?
Whatever. Just go for it.
What time is it?
It's fine. It's about 10.
10?
Yeah.
I have to leave at 10:50.
10:50. Oh, okay. Let me. So I was getting some messages. I'm not sure who it's from.
We need more than an hour.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. I was like I wanted to. I
was
go,
like,
you know,
what
I'm
time
gonna
is it? We
keep.
haven't
I'm gonna
even-
try and keep it to an hour, but then I'm like, how? How do you even?
I think friendship theory has to be another.
Oh, maybe we can do that.
Another
Maybe we can do
episode.
another episode.
This one is a lot about
Yeah,
trauma
yeah,
and
Hey, Assalamualaikum. You up? All good. Alright, we're almost done. I just wanted to see because Moby has to go at 10:50. So we'll probably be in about 10 minutes. Just gonna wrap up. Alright, yeah. So no.
You know what? I wanted to do a friendship podcast, like a whole podcast on
Yeah.
friendship. Do you want to do it with me?
You should do it.
No, do you want to do it with me?
What do you mean?
As in, we just talk about different areas of
The
friendship.
aspects, yeah.
Yeah, because
We
I was
can.
looking for someone to talk to it with.
Yeah.
I don't want to start there.
We can.
Like a whole, but this is my series
Yeah,
of
yeah,
podcasts with you,
Yeah.
and we just talk about each time different
Yeah.
topics.
So there are different types of like podcasts. There are some that are like, this podcast is 10 episodes and that's
Yeah.
it. It just stays as 10 episodes
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like people can listen through it.
Yeah.
There was a really interesting one called Caliphate, and it was about a New York Times reporter who was on the ground during the like she was like getting into cities which there were ISIS soldiers in there like 3 hours ago. Like just after they had vacated, she was like on the front line and she kind of gives her experience and she talks about it. It was really interesting. It's just 10 episodes and then an 11 like 1 year later kind of episode.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just a standalone. You know, you should definitely do it.
I want to do that. Yeah, like it's on all because I want to develop my friendship theory and I want to do podcasts. And I think I was looking for someone to talk to about it. I think it'd be good. You know?
Sure.
We'll do that. All right,
So
let's try and finish.
All right.
Okay.
Friendship
theory is a can of worms, and I know you're gonna want to delve into it.
Yeah.
So
We can. We'll do another episode.
we'll do another
definitely.
episode. Another episode on the friendship theory for you.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people where they can find you online?
No.
No. Social media.
Oh my
queen.
god! Can we talk about my social media identity or another? That's another episode. Emma, you thought you could break me down in 1 hour? God, man.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. Yeah, we'll talk to you again soon about your friendship theory and some more
Definitely.
episodes to come.
Definitely.
All right.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me. Did we finish it properly?
It's fine. It's all.